It's a good song. I can't deny it. It's catchy, easy to get into, and I think it's a good introduction to the band, and even to this kind of symphonic, melodic slash commercial metal. Hello there, girls and boys! Today I'm gonna be analyzing with you a song from Evergrey, a band that I have been following since I can remember, and they are one of those bands from the early mid 2000s from Europe that were quite successful performing metal. So this is taking us to that kind of melodic slash symphonic metal that was quite common during that era. And this is coming from Evergrey, as I stated before, and the song in question is In Orbit. And this is coming from the album The Storm Within. So without further ado, let's get into it. But before we go, if this is your first time on the channel, I welcome you because in here I analyze the music that we love from the perspective of an active musician and professional music producer, using language that anybody can understand in a way to expand our knowledge when it comes to music production and songwriting. So if that's your jam, let's rock and roll. So here we go, girls and boys, In Orbit by Evergrey. Okay, how about that? This band is particularly melodic, if that makes sense to you, girls and boys. I've been following Evergrey for almost the entirety of my adult life, to be very honest with you. So I like their music quite a lot. So of course this is going to be an extremely positive review. But one thing that they have, or one of the reasons why I like them so much, is the incredible use of melody. Melody, using terms, using more colloquial terms, stands for imagine that we're watching a movie, okay? And our main character is this time around is not gonna be Scarlett. It's gonna be Jennifer Connelly, yes. And she is the main character of our movie. She's the melody. Without the background, without the scenery, without the whole plot happening, her acting won't make sense. That's what harmony stands for. Harmony is everything that allows melody to make sense in musical terms, and rhythm would be the pacing of the action taking place on screen. And in Evergrey's music, melody is king. Everything they write is extremely catchy, is super sing-alongy, if that makes sense to you, and it's super easy to digest. It's not that complex, even though they have some progressive rock elements into the mix, but most of the time is super melodic. And this is one of those super catchy songs that I wouldn't be surprised that it became some form of a hit somewhere around the world. But wherever, I digress. The first thing that I want to point out is the sound of the bass. Pay attention to it. You're going to detect that there is some form of distortion, particularly on the higher end, or the high register of the sound that comprises the sound of the bass guitar. You're gonna hear that kind of clickiness and a little bit of every time that the notes are hit. Is that a good thing? It makes sense because of how ridiculously gigantic the distortion is on the guitars. One of the signatures, one of the elements that makes the signature sound of the band is the tone of the guitars. In my opinion, It's not necessarily the best guitar tone ever. It's just my opinion. Don't shoot the arrows. It's simply because even though it's super precise and it's super gnarly, it's way too gnarly in my opinion. I think it's a little bit too over the top. But again, it's a matter of taste. Do I think it's a bad sound? Of course not. It's simply not my jam. But I am telling you this because of how important the distortion is on the sound of the bass guitar as well. By applying that distortion to the sound of the bass, it's making the mix of, or the blend, if I put it in better terms, of the guitars and the bass fit better together in the context of the mix, thus giving us a much better sounding result. That's a very, very, very important trick for all of you who are musicians yourself and are creating music in the vein of this kind of metal. So it's important. Even if you're not playing metal, I will recommend you to have some form of distortion as part of the bass sound of your band because it helps to blend better with the electric guitars. But I digress. Also, the sound of the drums is amazing. I gotta tell you that when I listened to this album for the first time, I was blown away by the sound of the drums. It's very, very badass. I love the tone of the kick drum and particularly the snare. So cool. Of course, please remind me the name of the drummer because, damn it, he's knocking the ball out of the park in this one. It's very basic. He's not doing anything extraordinarily complex, but it's not about that. It's about musicality. And once again, as I explained to you, Evergrey is a super melody-driven band. So having a drummer that knows what to do and not overdo it, it's important. So you got that one. And also, I don't know if you already realized that this song has a featuring act. And it's coming in the name of Floor Jansen. And she's about to join into the fray. So let's get into it. And believe me, when she does it, you'll see. If you haven't heard the song, get prepared. This is awesome.
I have been watching you from a distance. I've been monitoring you from cloudless skies. I've been calling your name just to ease your resistance. But nothing seems to shift your darkened sky. Run before it is over. I run, but still I believe it seems. Run, but now getting closer. I run to get away from this dream. I'm in orbit, stars exploding when I call your name. Here it's too dark and lonely. You're my compass, only reason to stay sane.
How was that? I told you, when she joins into the fray is amazing. Gotta say that I love her vocals, her tone, the sound of her voice is extremely beautiful. For those of you who don't know, she is, her name is Floor Jansen. Correct me if it's pronounced differently. But she is someone who has been around for quite a while now in the metal, particularly speaking in the melodic / symphonic metal scene. And well, she has been part of After Forever, and also I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but she is right now the current lead vocal for Nightwish. Okay, tell me if I'm wrong, but whatever. Her voice is particularly, in my own personal opinion, it's better than Tarja. Don't even dare to shoot the arrows. It's just an opinion. It's just an opinion. I know that Tarja is Tarja, but Nightwish and Tarja is basically, yeah. But, in my humble opinion, I prefer her vocal style, Floor Jansen, due to its to her texture. It's not on the side of how theatrical or how proficient she is. I think her voice is a little bit more. For a lack of a better term, melodic. Melodious would be better, right? She sounds softer, more feminine. It's something that I like. Okay, it might be just my biases. Okay, but in this song, I think her voice is super well used. You'll see later, once we reach the final chorus, how powerful she can also become when singing. But I love as well the proper use of both. Please remind me the name of Englund. I know that that's his Engulf, sorry, that's his last name. Just I can't remember the name of his name right now. Please remind me in the comment section. But the melody or the combination of both voices doing the harmony during the chorus is excellent. Now let's take a look at the screen because I want to point out some of the elements of the mixing that are part of this whole endeavor. In front of you, girls and boys, you got our usual tool that we like to use in this channel. This is Decibel, and if you know what this is, well, you know because you know. But for those who are new to the channel, this is a tool that we use to reference or have a visual reference to the music that we're listening to this at this very moment, so we can analyze it in a much more, but through the use of a visual medium. And over here we got the frequency range analyzer, which is giving us how loud the different points inside of the frequency range spectrum of our human hearing have been throughout time in volume. And it starts at 20, and it goes all the way up to 20,000. And not surprising at all, we got a really punchy sounding mix, and we can see the amount of low end that is part of the sound of this mix. And I am pointing out that particularity because part of the sound of this kind of metal, some people kind of looks at it as a very commercial style of music. And I'm not going to say that it is not, because it's hugely successful in certain regions of the world. I know metal is far from being popular, but you get my point, okay? This is not, I don't know, Behemoth. Even Behemoth could be considered bad, but you know what I mean, okay? But the thing is that this kind of metal or this kind of music production tends to be quite refined. It's extremely doctored, it's extremely well crafted. And I say doctored not in a bad, in a derogatory fashion. It's simply that it requires a lot of effort to get a sound such as this one. And you can tell from the beginning of the very track that everything is super well put together. Do I find it to be problematic? No, of course not. It's just a sound. The thing is that compared to something a little bit more old-fashioned, like let's say, let's stay within the metal genre. Let's say something like Iron Maiden. Their productions tends to be, especially modern Iron Maiden, is trying to go way as close as possible to the raw sound of the original records. Do they succeed at that? Don't know. Let me know what you think about it. But it's a clear difference between these and those records. What you often will find in common between, for example, Evergrey, Nightwish, who else sounds quite similar to these guys? Anathema, and all of those bands from Europe that came out during the early 2000s, there is this particular super punchy sound that it's present once again, and you could clearly see it here on the screen, where you got a lot of low end and plenty of mid-range, and that's where you get the stuff. Again, if you find this kind of redundant, because most of the time I point out the low end and the mid-range is because to our human ears, mid-range is where most of what we consider to be musical is going to be found. And the low end is where we find the excitement. And this being metal, and this being highly produced metal, you got this, which is coming out of the low end. That's why it's important. Now, I'm going to show you the second section of the analyzer, which is the dynamic range analyzer. So what does dynamic range stands for if you haven't been here before? Dynamic range is the term we use to describe the differences in sound, in volume, to be precise, across time of any given track. And this analyzer allows us to have a visual representation of those moments through the use of this visual medium. The smaller this blue blob is, the louder, or the smaller it is, the quieter the sound of the music was at that very point. And we can see that the introduction, we got this kind of intense, because the song is actually punchy since the get-go. From the get-go, but you can see that the song progressed throughout time, becoming louder and louder, until we reach the first gigantic chorus. But keep this in mind, see how much it's pushed once the second chorus hits. Look, it's way louder than the first one. That's extremely important because the louder signal is, the more exciting it becomes, or the more exciting it feels to our human ears. And I always like to point out at this because this is something that is done during the mixing process. That has nothing to do with the band. And the mixer does it because the whole point of recording music is to allow to get something close to the experience that would be being in front of Evergrey while they are performing live. And doing these tricks, pushing the volume slightly higher whenever the more emotional or the more impactful sections of the track becomes apparent or prevalent, it makes the audience react to it with more intensity. So basically speaking, as a mixer, we're playing tricks on you.
How dare you?
But it's important because this is part of the charm of music. And I like to show you this because once you listen to music by your own, you will be able to point at those particular effects. And it will allow you to have a much bigger appreciation for the craft. Okay? It's nothing wrong, actually. That's the correct way to do things. Now, let's come back to the music because we're about to hit the badass guitar solo. So here we go. How about that vocal performance at the end of the track? As I told you, her voice is excellent. I think she's a really gifted singer. And the way that they capitalize on the of her fantastic range, but not only that, the intensity of her voice and the emotional load that comes with her singing at the end of the track was excellent. Of course, the guitar solo was badass. It was excellent. You saw several moments of actual musicianship taking place in between the different members of the band. The drummer was excellent throughout the whole track. There were sections in which he actually hit the ball out of the park. I love the interplay between the two guitars. Please tell me the name of the guitar player as well. As you may already know, I suck at memory, but the way that this song is produced is excellent. I think that as a piece of music, or piece of written music or produced music, the entirety of the track is a huge example on how to write a song of this kind of style of music. Everything is where it should. the use of every single element of the band and the arrangement is present yet not obnoxious, is not getting in the way of anything. You let every single one of the band members or every single one of the members of this arrangement shine at their own pace. That's excellent. For example, could you see how well they use that phrase, the on the piano? Then you could hear it on certain synthesizers throughout different sections of the track, keeping this theme of the song present without getting in the way of anything. So good. And also, coming back to the final chorus, did you see the intensity, the power coming out of her voice? There is one particular section on which she truly shines. One phrase that she sings in such a way that oof. So I know I'm fanboying way too much about this track, but it's a good song. I can't deny it. It's catchy. It's easy to get. It's easy to get into, and I think it's a good introduction to the band, and even to this kind of symphonic, melodic / commercial metal. Again, don't shoot the arrows. There is nothing wrong with being with making money. That's actually a good chunk of what we are meant to be doing in life. But yeah, so please tell me, what do you think about Evergrey? What do you think about Floor Jansen and her performance in this song, and also her contributions to Nightwish? And yes, once again, this is meant to be a civil conversation. I'm not trying to convince you that Floor is better than Tarja. It's just that I prefer Floor Jansen over Tarja. But whatever, that's my own opinion, and please let me know what's yours. If you like to support this kind of content and this channel, please, you can do it by not only subscribing, but also by listening to music on Apple Music or Spotify, and also by joining us on Instagram, because that's the best way for you to get in touch with us in a much more personal basis. Now, girls and boys, as every single time I meet you, I can remind you that you should never ever let anybody tell you what to dream about. And remember that I will see you when I see you.